Welcome back to Senate Education. Final bit of business today is now draft number 6.1 of S204 Committee's Literacy Bill. And we're going to have Ms. St. James take us through highlights, just big overview, except for the parts that were changed.
Great. Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. So as the chair said, this is draft 6.1 of S204, your strike all committee amendment. This takes the previous draft of S204 and then adds at the very end the previous draft of S303. So they are now in one bill. Okay. The findings section 1 is actually from S303, but it was relevant to literacy, so I plunked it right up at the top there. Sure. Section 2 is, remember, 204 is assessment and intervention, and 303 is licensing or special development. So section 2 is the reading, assessment, and intervention section that would be added to chapter 99 in title 16. There was a change here, but you can't see it because it was a deletion. I did take out the dyslexia specific language. I think it was unnecessary given the other changes we made around dyslexia specific, and that the purpose of that former language is already met by the entire rest of the statute. So first change is on page 5, line 6. And I believe this is a suggestion made by the approved independent school community. And that is just adding kind of a modifier for in subsection F on, again, page 5, line 6. Kind of adding a modifier to that word stakeholders, given all the conversation and ambiguity around that term. Just allowing the school district or the approved independent school to define that term for themselves. And I think you heard testimony that school districts have already kind of defined that in different ways and in different scenarios. And so this just allows the approved independent schools to do the same. Next change is on page, so I'm gonna, just to orient you, page 7, okay. Section 5. This is current law, changes to current law. This is the Preventing Early School Failure Reading Instruction statute. And there's already been a bunch of changes to kind of bring it in line with the rest of the changes that were in S204 in the beginning regarding the assessment, intervention, and evidence base, right? So on page 8, line 4, I added I split it up a little bit. The language that I believe it was Dr. Forrest yesterday, that right? Dr. Forrest suggested language for you all regarding requiring approved independent schools to develop a grade level appropriate school literacy plan that is informed by student needs and assessment data. The plan may include identification of a literacy vision, goals, and priorities. Shall address the following topics: measures and indicators, screening, assessment, instruction, intervention, and progress monitoring consistent with section. I hope you all have one that says 2907 of this title. Great. That's referring to the reading assessment intervention statute that starts the bill off, right? Because that applies to approved independent schools. And then professional development, all unlicensed teachers consistent with subsection 1710B, which we will walk through. So this is language, again, that was part of Dr. Forrest's testimony yesterday, and I plunked it into current law because this is the statute, I believe, that kind of guides and authorizes and enables all of the work around the local literacy plan in the public school sphere. And so if we're talking about literacy plans, let's keep it all in one place. And we're just adding very specific language about approved independent schools. So this would apply to all, this language on page 8 would apply to all approved independent schools, regardless of whether or not they accept public funding. Questions? Page 9 is just implementation of that literacy plan piece and the recommendations. I'm on page 9, line 5, section 6. My highlighting today is on point. Took me all session to get here. Section 6. Oh boy, it's Friday, isn't it? Appreciate that. This is just implementation. So the recommendation, I believe, in the testimony you heard yesterday was that those approved independent school literacy plans to be developed on or before January 1. And so this is just, rather than put that date in statute, just a little session law. Now we're gonna go to, so we're still on page 9, section 7. So now this is all what used to be in S303.
Please, Senator.
Sorry, I was trying to form my question for the section that you had highlighted on page 8. You had mentioned that this is a requirement for approved independent schools regardless of whether they accept public funds. So for a school that does not accept public funds, and would they have to pay for anything that comes that's coming from this section? And if so, where does that money come?
I mean, this language does not contemplate how someone funds this work.
Okay. All right. Just check. Thank you.
But can I push that? So modules, to my understanding from yesterday, are already paid for free. It's the time that may be a question, how they prioritize this professional development versus other education.
Yeah.
So section 7, page 9. Again, this is the professional literacy, professional learning. This is what used to be S303. We changed the date yesterday on line 18 to when all professionally licensed educators. Oh, you'll see. Oh boy, you can take the trophy away.
Why?
Line 17 should have been highlighted.
Professional educators.
Yeah, so what this you'll see, what I did was I broke this up into kind of 2 sections. We added because there's now a section about professional development for unlicensed teachers employed by approved independent schools. So we'll get there. But anyway, so July 1, 2027 is for current professionally licensed teachers teaching pre-K through grade 5. To do their professional learning, and then July 1, 2026 is for newly professional licensed teachers within their first 2 years of teaching.
Can I ask a question? So the program is intended to improve reading between kindergarten and 3rd grade.
No, it screens for kinder, if you're talking about
The intent, yeah.
Yeah, the section that I was responsible for originally, that was to screen K through 3, but to improve outcomes for pre-K through 12. For everybody.
Yeah, so I get what I wanted to ask was on page 10, line 4. So through grades 5, that's very deliberate. I saw the change in yesterday's copy. But that's very deliberate. That
I was gonna wait till she was done and then ask the secretary that she was concurring with us. If just yeah, I was gonna wait till she was done, but whatever, we can do it now.
I don't know where that change came from. That didn't
Came
come
from me.
Okay. I think it's a good start and we, that's where we want, the early years are most critical for learning to read. I think we were leaving it as broad as possible because we know that there are still students that make it to middle school and even high school that aren't that have reading challenges that haven't been detected before then. So I don't think I would say we don't support the bill with this change, but I just want to have on the record that for us, it really is about that broad frame. And I don't know what, was it a capacity issue or what?
I had heard again from constituents, because I really plugged into my constituency, that they, for example, a science teacher in high school and she said to me, just point blank, I will never be teaching a kid how to read.
That's not what this is for, though, remember. It's not, we're trying to teach them to teach kids how to read. We want them to understand how kids learn to read, and that's part of these modules. And so that when they see a student struggling when they're trying to read their science information, they can say, okay.
I think that she felt it was just gonna be completely irrelevant to her at her stage of the game, which may not be true, but. And then it's a similar person who's a high school Spanish teacher felt the same way, like she just was never gonna be in a position to be. Even with an understanding of evidence-based literacy practices, she didn't feel that she was gonna be in a position to be doing that work. So. I
But to
don't
the secretary's
know.
position, I think it's a really good one.
Mhm.
I mean, we haven't gone through all the modules.
Mhm.
You know, we're relying on all of you to tell us, again, we've seen a little bit of what's in them. But if a science teacher comes across a student who's struggling, those modules will inform that teacher how to help that student at that point
In the moment,
in the moment with that,
as opposed to like, I'm a science teacher, this is not really.
my
Or-
thing, or, yeah.
And don't, I think, in the version, we still have that we actually have work to do to actually delineate which of these module components would be for like the high school teachers. We're not asking them to do the entire 45 hours.
Is that
would
accurate?
be-
We talked about this, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
There was a version of this language in the bill in various different drafts. But I believe I received feedback at some point that we can do that work anyway and to take that section out. I think I had a combo with Ted on that, but I can add that back in.
I think. I think adding it back in kind of hurt.
Okay.
Wait, what are we adding there?
I'll find it.
This would be the section that basically would allow the agency of education. Sounds like there might have been a question around whether or not the agency of education could do this kind of delineation. Saying, hey, you're gonna,
We can do it.
okay, yeah. Tell us again the piece that we pulled out.
I'm gonna find the language from the last draft. It'll just take me a second to find that draft. I think the language that the bill was introduced in the bill, I had a question over jurisdiction because it made it seem like the agency was perhaps making decisions that rested with the professional standards board. But then I think we untangled that a little bit and it would be we making recommendations
Yes.
to the professional standards board.
Well, the way I read it, but I haven't looked at the language in a while, is that we would make recommendations about the particular modules that were relevant for instance, high school teachers. But yes, if then it is, I guess, taking that logic forward that like, and these are the required ones you have to do, that would be a standards board issue.
Okay, and you could make those recommendations to the standards board without
Yes.
any legislative action.
We could.
Yeah.
And then I think that we should have it back to K-12.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If there's specific
Yeah.
modules that are relevant and not too onerous to add to a high school teacher's professional learning, then I would be in support of that.
I think I am too, yeah,
And it's what other states have done.
okay.
They've required, again, it's really kind of,
Because I saw
Just
where
making
totally
sure
where
all
Bill was coming from,
educators-
frankly, yesterday, you know,
Right.
if all of a sudden that, you know, it's like, wait, why am I?
Right.
But now that it's sort of been being pulled apart a little bit more, it does make sense, yes.
So I just had a quick question, kind of a mechanism question. So a student, let's say, comes up through grade 5, has a reading problem, literacy problem that extends beyond grade 5, or there's a transfer in, it's identified having a challenge. Are there reading intervention specialists in the system that would then take over? And they would be the ones who would be like fully qualified, fully
Yes.
trained? Okay, right, great.
but we know that there are still students that slip through the cracks, no matter our best
Yeah.
effort. And this is a way to kind of make sure everyone has a shared understanding and goal of like, okay, we want all of our students to learn to read, even if I'm a physical education teacher. And if I see a student really struggling, like with their letters on this letter, like, okay, that looks like something I really need to let my colleagues in the MTSS team know about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm removing pre-K through grade 5.
Yes.
From where? From
So from be on page 9. Line 19. Right, we're modifying. For which teachers, so remove it from there, is that accurate?
Hold on, please, thank you.
Adrian?
9,
Yeah.
line 19.
I mean, I'm getting hung up on shall complete a program of professional learning on evidence-based, what does that mean?
So, just for clarification, Senator Hewitt, you're also online?
Yeah,
Or are you on?
I started on 18 and then I went 19, 20,
All
page 9.
professionally licensed.
It just.
Employed in Vermont or equivalent shall complete a program of professional learning on evidence-based literacy instruction developed by officers. Approved.
See, I think there, it actually would be appropriate to say for middle and high school grades.
But I don't think that's Senator, let me just stick with Senator
Okay.
Hewitt. I think Senator Hewitt's point, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Hewitt, is you don't like the language in terms of the requirement. Like, if you feel it's too specific,
Yeah.
because we
what-
kind of
what is
pushed it out
Shall
like
complete a program of professional learning.
It's actually.
as a.
Goal defined.
Well, I thought what we were trying to do here was we were trying to have the Agency of Education get involved in maybe approving certain programs, like the 3-credit class at Champlain, the Orton Gillingham program that somebody else might do, or the modules. I thought that was kind of the flexibility we were giving there.
Yeah, so this was meant to say,
Because we didn't want people locked into just the modules.
correct,
Right.
if they had another reasonable way to map getting access and understanding about these 5 pillars, that's exactly what it's for. But I thought you meant something else, Senator Hewitt.
Well, let's
which was
stick
the
with this
requirement.
first. Hold on. So Senator Hewitt, which,
Yeah, I guess it just seems, it still doesn't seem well defined to me, because as much as I concur with the secretary on having some learning done by some high school teachers so that they understand the struggles of a child who's having a hard time reading, I don't quite understand. That to me is different from shall complete a program of professional learning, which seems like a big, potentially big, but it's not really well defined. What is that program?
so help me understand, what would be a bad program that this language would pull somebody into?
What would be what?
Like, what you would feel like would be too, like, because I think the issue you might be having is professional learning, that definition.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what that means. I don't know what shall complete a program of professional learning means.
Maybe AOE could come away with language that defines their approach.
Yeah, and I just,
Alter those two.
yeah, I just wanna clarify, because I think Senator Gulick, we're on the same page, which is, it says, and now I'm understanding why you said for K-5. Really, for K-5, it was, you're going to complete this program because you are K-5.
Right.
If you are a teacher of older students, we don't necessarily want you to complete this whole 45 credit equivalent program. And that's kind of why I said I think this might be the place to add that language, Beth, that says for maybe middle school and high school grades, the agency will clarify what components of, I can get you that information. But is that
Yeah,
what
that
we're
would be helpful.
Is
would be
that
helpful.
getting at the issue?
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say
Yeah.
originally.
If it's good for you, that's good. I'm just looking at Beth. Does it feel good to you?
So here's kind of what I'm seeing from my perspective. So a program.
Yeah.
Means not a specific program.
Right.
And the term program is not defined, right? We all have been talking about the literacy modules. But someone just reading this is not most likely privy to those conversations, right?
Correct.
So I think this language on its face is nimble enough that a program of professional learning doesn't lock anyone into anything. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think is subjective, right? Depending on your policy goals. We can absolutely add, and I would suggest it would be in session law like it was, language that directs the Agency of Education to make recommendations to the Professional Standards Board for the requirements around those grade level and what portions of the modules or titles of courses, etc., would suffice for those. But I wouldn't put that in statute.
Agreed. Yeah, I hear what you're saying now.
And even then,
Yeah.
AOE making the recommendation of the Professional Standards Board does not mean that the Professional Standards Board is going to adopt that.
Mhm.
I think that's why we took that language out, was to just let them work it out.
Okay.
But, you know,
What do you think?
Me?
Yeah,
So we're trusting in the standards boards and the AOE to come up with a plan that seems reasonable and appropriate for various, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was always our intent all along. So I don't see it, I don't
and
personally.
I think initially the thing Senator Kayla, maybe we should tighten it up, but,
what about adding
I
something?
don't, I think I agree with Beth in the, if somebody's just reading this, it is nimble enough, it's flexible enough.
But what about adding something here that just says programs may vary depending on teacher endorsement?
Right.
Educator endorsement.
Please.
I think that's fine. What I think is really important though, and I think we're in agreement on this, is that we all have a shared understanding of what science-based reading is. And so we don't want this to be interpreted as like anything goes
Right.
for the individual teacher. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's the part that I'm hedging on a little bit. Like, I just wanna make sure that,
So you, the
which is
age,
why we have it as the AOE maintains sort of like some stamp of approval.
this, we also added language, this is kind of back and forth conversation, okay, Chair.
I like
Okay,
this,
okay.
yeah,
We added language, the committee added language to require AOE approval of anything that's not the AOE maintained program. And that any program that's approved pursuant to this section shall be substantially similar in content to professional learning programs developed and offered by the agency. So that's
Already covered.
trying to tie that in. Okay. Do you want, I'm trying to like read the committee and I hear that we like the simple language, but I also know that we're a little nervous about it, trying to thread that needle.
I like it, we have nervous over here,
Nervous, but settling down a little.
okay,
Do we have a report gap requirement here? I don't think we do. But you can certainly, I mean, you know,
keep
invite
going,
testimony
yeah,
next year on how this is working and adjust accordingly. Okay. Where are we? Okay, so we've talked about.
let us know if you change your mind.
Okay, so you changed the date. Okay, so we are on page 10. Line 12, subsection C. This is the other piece of Dr. Ford's testimony related to approved independent schools.
Right.
So this is so remember, approved independent schools do not have to employ teachers that are licensed by the Vermont Standards Board. They can, and I'm sure many do. If those teachers if a teacher is licensed by the Professional Standards Board, it does not matter if they are working in an approved independent school or a public school, they have to comply with what we just walked through.
Right.
If they are an unlicensed teacher employed by the approved independent school, this is the professional learning requirement for that group of folks.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
On or before July 1, 2027, all unlicensed teachers employed by an approved independent school shall complete an explicit evidence-based literacy instructional development program. The professional development program shall be approved by the approved independent school and may be differentiated by role and experience and may account for prior training. Unlicensed teachers hired by an approved independent school on or after July 1 shall complete, 2026 shall complete the professional development program pursuant to the subsection within 1 year after hire. And then the approved independent school, we're on page 11 now, have to maintain a record of completion. So the record of completion for the licensed folks is their license renewal. These are unlicensed folks, so we're asking the schools themselves to complete it.
Ms. Pelosi.
Laura Pelosi, I represent St. John's River Academy. Just one thing I'd like to point out, our language, and it gets to the conversation you were just having, but we also wanted to be able to consider grade level in determining the professional development. So it goes back to what you were just talking about, right? So maybe differentiated by grade level, role, and experience, and may account for prior training.
Made that decision.
Secretary Boucher, are you comfortable with this letter, this language on page 10?
Yes,
Do you want a paper copy?
nope, I'm actually,
Mr.
no
Senator.
need.
Senator Weeks in the center field.
So we're not overburdening a newly onboarding teacher with another requirement, meaning that are there already requirements stacked up?
For an unlicensed teacher in an independent school?
Or a new, no, this is really. probably
Just any
more-
teacher.
Any teacher.
Secretary Boucher.
We have, I think, it is a new burden. We're linking it to the licensure system and we've given them 2 years to do it. And we think it's important enough that we want them to do so.
So not overwhelming for a newly onboarded teacher.
I think we've tried to work to extend the timeline out so it's less over.
Good, good.
And we know right now, and I'm wondering how we settled this, there are a lot of unlicensed teachers in all of our schools because of the need. People are in provisional, people are doing this. How did we capture everybody else?
You made the choice to require the full licensure, so it would not apply to provisional licenses.
That would probably be an undue burden on them,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Because some of them may decide, I don't wanna stick around, I don't wanna be a professionally
Yep.
licensed, a professionally licensed teacher.
Sorry.
Yep.
Getting a little. Being a beginning teacher is overwhelming,
Yeah,
period. So, hopefully it'll trickle down to their prep programs and they'll get it done before they become a teacher so that they don't have to then do it. But I wanted to posit to Ms. Pelosi's point that might save us a little editing. Could the word role be construed as including grade level? I mean, your role is your role and it's.
third grade role. fifth grade
Right,
role.
I mean, couldn't that be included in the word role?
I don't know, I mean, our literacy plan language is also tied back to grade level appropriateness, so I mean, I think we'd be more comfortable just being clear. Grade level versus role, whether you're a special educator or a general ed teacher, or. We were thinking of it more that way.
Senator Lewis, what
versus-
line is in that?
17 on page 10.
Let me show you. Differentiated by role and experience, may account for prior training. And you're saying,
To add grade level, differentiate by grade level, right, so.
I can see either, I mean, so what does council think?
I think role does not necessarily include grade level.
Okay.
So if you want to specify that, you should include that.
Great level.
I was trying to save us more editing, but that's fine.
And our sheet. Did you ever come in? Okay, good. I'm sorry, Senator Williams.
Page 10, line 4. It says, any particular reason why you picked second year for a new teacher to comply?
Me?
Yeah.
We think it would be ridiculous for us to ask them to do that in their first year, just given everything coming at them. But we also don't want it, we didn't want it to extend out into perpetuity because they're already teaching kids, and so we thought by the end of their second year would be reasonable.
Good. Thank you.
Nothing more than that, sir, just trying to use some logic here.
Okay, so I made the grade level change and I've taken out pre-K through grade stuff. Next change is on page 17. This is the literacy position appropriation. We went from 100,000 to 150,000.
And again, I just bumped that up thinking we'll have appropriations take a deeper dive on that.
And then, section 13, this is the report back on, kind of those book sharing programs that you
Right,
see advisory council on literacy, and now we've changed it to the Department of Libraries as the reporting entity. And then on page 18, the last change is just to the title of the bill. I did this last night, while my child was in the bath. So I'm not sure it's the best title.
Wait, where's the best, where page?
Page 18.
Oh, an act relating to supporting Vermont's young readers through evidence-based literary instruction. I think it's terrific.
It's
Great.
perfect.
Not young,
I like
not young.
It's perfect.
An act
I love
relating to
it.
supporting Vermont's readers, not young, if you're
I
saying.
used young in case, you know, it's about school age, but that's what I'm saying.
I like young.
I feel like.
This is all you.
Young.
I think of myself as a young man and I'm not
I do play long in the mirror. and-
like well learning. Let's
Young,
keep it-
yes or no? Yeah,
Keep it.
okay.
So we're gonna warn this, we're gonna let people read it, we're gonna warn it, I mean, we have some edits, so we will put it the first thing the day we get back.
We have an edit, right? Is there more?
I took out
There's also a little-
two edits. I added grade level and I took out pre-K through grade 5, just the modifier of the teachers that need to complete the literacy. So there is a new draft. I will send it to Morgan before I leave so that you can send it to you all.
Great.
Uh,
Post it.
actually, no, I take that back. I am gonna send this to editing one more time.
Okay, thank you.
And so you'll get it at some point.
Anything else from anybody else? Thanks, everybody. I know I said we'd go until 3 and we went later, and I can tell some people are mad, but
No, it's not.
live it, live it.
We are not mad.
Good part.
Thanks, Miss St. James, really appreciate it. You are